to another episode of Smart People Travel Wise, a platform where we discuss all things about travel. I'm your host, Tennie Sumague, coming back to you from my hometown of Woodside, Queens, New York, from my 2-week trip to Seoul, Korea, and Manila, Philippines. And I'm delighted to come back. I apologize for not being able to come on last week from the Philippines. If you've ever been to the Philippines, especially if you're staying in the province, it's a little bit hard to get Wi-Fi. But I'm back home with great stories and great adventures for you to share with you, and hopefully it'll get you to travel better and travel wiser. But before we get started, if you are logging in live, please hashtag live. And if you are watching on replay, hashtag replay. Make sure you tell us where you're coming from so we can acknowledge all of you. Don't forget to like us on Facebook and YouTube. You can also chime in on Amazon Fire, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or simply download the PHLV radio app available on all iOS and Android phones. So it's 2023, and I'm wondering, how's your new year starting off? I'm letting you know, as you can see, I have a new look. I'm going for the more K-drama look. I recently, like I mentioned, I've recently visited Seoul, Korea, and I've had a blast there. And I am here to tell you more about my trip in Seoul, part 2, since I wasn't able to come on live last week. And hopefully this podcast episode will make you want to go to Korea in either 2023 or in your future plans. So I'm going to kick off this first podcast episode 2023 with my review on Seoul, Korea. So sit back, relax, maybe grab a cup of coffee or tea and enjoy this podcast. So let's continue on my opinion on Seoul, Korea, heart and soul. As you can see, I want to just share with you the inspiration behind my new look is actually I've been obsessed now with K-dramas, which is, that's very popular amongst the Filipino community. I remember before I left New York, I was getting my nails done, and I was telling the people in the salon that I was going to go to Korea. And I ran into like 2 Filipinos and said, they asked me, are you going to Seoul? And I was like, yes. Oh, are you watching K-dramas? I was like, no, but I was telling them, yes, my sister is very obsessed with K-dramas right now. And everyone is telling me the first K-drama that I should watch is Crash Landing on You. And that's also the same thing that those 2 ladies in the nail salon said, and they're raving about it. And it is one of the top rated K-dramas in history. And it did not disappoint. And I tell you, my inspiration is really behind the actress Sun Yi-jin. Her character Seri, which I really like. She's a terrific actress, and I really love that character because she's this like successful businesswoman who has like a heart of gold, and she falls in love with Captain Ri, played by Han Bin, who is a terrific actor. That's my man crush at the moment. I'm sure everyone, smash those heart buttons if you like Han Bin and his wife Sun Yi-jin and the whole Crash Landing, Crash Landing fan base, or what is their hashtag Binjin. But I'm just letting you know that the inspiration behind my look is actually from K-dramas, and I did get this haircut while I was in the Philippines, Mall of America, not Mall of America, Mall of Asia. And it happened to be in the Korean salon entitled Bangs. And yes, a Korean hairstylist cut my hair, and I told him I want to look like those Korean drama actresses. So make sure that you give me that look so that I have the full bangs, and then when my hair grows, I could, what is this? Layer it. But enough about my obsession of K dramas and my K drama look. But speaking of beauty, I just want to share with you that yes, K beauty is a phenomenon right now. I mean, since the pandemic, and everyone is always in Koreatown here in New York, shopping for K beauty products. Not because it's only because, I mean, I want to say it's because it's affordable and it's good, and people are just inspired by these influencers who rave on K beauty, and I am one of those people who rave about K beauty, and it's done wonders to my skin. But I do want to share with you that if you're ever going to Korea, and if you're, and this is for all these K beauty enthusiasts, that the reason why I stayed in the Myeongdong district, which is pretty much the Times Square of Korea, where there's easy access to the metro. It's very busy, very lively. That's the Myeongdong night food night market. It's one of the most popular in the city, but it is also central, or the district of where you could purchase all your skincare um all your skincare needs. There's Innisfree, Holika, Vanilla, Laneige, Olive Young. Olive Young is the Sephora of Korea, and I probably spent and the flagship store is there in Myeongdong district, and I've probably spent about an hour in in Olive Young buying Korean beauty products. Especially one of my favorites is Beauty of Joseon. If you want recommendations, I do recommend their serums, their sunscreen, and also I'm loving their eye serum. So that's some of my suggestions. And yes, that's the place where you want to buy all your K beauty products if you ever hit Seoul. And there's more to the Myeongdong district aside from the K beauty, um, the night markets. And if you go on my Instagram, and I have my personal Instagram is at Tennie TenniESEE. Um, and you could also look on my Facebook, and then my new personal blog at My Destiny, my my DESTENNIE. Such a creative way of, don't you think it's a little bit creative? That's my new personal blog where I am blogging about my travel journey and other lifestyle stories. And I've been blogging about my time in Seoul. And if you could see, if you have followed me or will follow, choose to follow me, you'll see that I have a lot of food pictures in Seoul, especially in the Myeongdong district. And I highly suggest that you check out the night markets in Myeongdong. I mean, they have everything from, I bought Wagyu steak, and it was 15,000 won, which is equivalent to $13. If you buy Wagyu beef here, especially in New York, it's like triple the price. Yeah, and it was just delicious. It was Wagyu beef with mushrooms and onions. I've had yakitori, which is roughly about 5,000 won, which is about $3. It's so affordable, street food, and you could live off street food for the rest of your trip. There's more to Korean food other than Korean barbecue and Korean fried chicken, but I'll get to Korean barbecue and Korean fried chicken in a bit. But I still want to come here and rave about the night markets in Myeongdong, which is, it's food for the soul. Get it? Food for the soul. And you could get anything yakitori, hot dog, which is a rice cake, cinnamon, with cinnamon. It's like with cinnamon sugar and syrup. That's a great dessert. I had grilled octopus, mandu, which was oh my gosh, it was food, like I said, food for the soul. There's so many things: grilled cheese with condensed milk, lobster with cheese. What else? Grilled shrimp with honey butter corn. Just check out my Facebook and my Instagram for more details on what types of street foods that you can have when you ever visit the Myeongdong district in South Korea. So speaking of food, Korea is also Seoul is also known for their markets, their food markets, and one of the most popular ones is the Gwangyang market. Now, I went there twice. The first time I went there because well, the first time it was in my itinerary, and I did want to discover, the hustle and bustle of the market, which reminds me of Chinatown, Allen Street here in New York City. It just has that. If you ever been to Chinatown, and I don't mean Mott Street, which is that's kind of like the popular street in Chinatown. But if you go further, closer to it's actually closer to the Williamsburg Bridge and underneath the Manhattan Bridge, Allen Street. There's just a lot of, it's basically everything is like in Chinese, and it's all like food shops and different clothing, and it's just a busy street, and that's what the area of the Gwangyang market reminds me of. And I think it was like a maze going in there. And one of the most interesting foods I had at the market was, and it's a popular delicacy in Korea, and for 32,000 won, which is about $25.50, is raw octopus and beef tartare. And on top of it, you have a runny egg on top of it. It is delightful. And to mention that raw octopus, it's raw and it moves like Jagger. Yeah, so imagine that's one of the most interesting things I ate in my trip to Korea. And I have the tendency to eat something exotic whenever I travel. When I went to Rio de Janeiro, I had wild boar. When I went to Sydney, Australia, I had kangaroo meat. The one thing that I will never eat that is pretty exotic is balut. And yeah, seeing a chicken head in an egg, it's just not my thing. But could eat any other kind of exotic food other than balut and probably liver. I can't stand the taste of liver, although I would put it in my mouth because they say liver is good for it's good for you in terms of the healthy component of liver. But back to raw octopus and beef tartare, which I recommend that any food lover, if you're that daring, it's something that you should try. And you specifically have to have it in a place called Pancake Seoul, which has been seen on Netflix Asia. It's one of them, and it's always busy there. So for 32,000 won, which is about $25.50, get yourself raw octopus and beef tartare, and they're both raw with a runny egg. Now, speaking of other food, I watched this lady who makes hand-pulled noodles with dumplings, and that's also a popular food choice in the market, where you'll see lines of people, of tourists and locals falling in line for these hand-pulled noodles with soup, which you can eat with some kimchi, which is delightful. And you could it only costs you about roughly 7 to 8 won, if that's probably about $5. And when you buy hand-pulled noodles with dumplings and soup, if it's roughly about it could be like $9, $10, $12, depending where you live. I'm speaking in dollars in terms of New York City, where prices are quite high. Remember, New York City is the most expensive city in the world at the moment. So that's another food choice that I recommend when you hit Gwangyang Market, is to get those hand-pulled noodles with dumplings, and it has to be by the lady. She's very recognizable, also seen on Netflix, and she wears this pink hat, and she cuts these, the way she cuts these dumplings, it's like, she cuts it, and she's also like staring at how many people are online and serving the people, and literally she's just cutting these dumplings without having to look at it, and it's cut perfectly. So that was one of the most amazing things I saw in Seoul. Thirdly, if you ever go to the market and locals, there's a long line, is to get these dillamanju cakes. Now, dillamanju is those like fishy, I would say it's like taiyaki, that's the Japanese name. And they're pretty much like pancakes, and they're shaped like a fish. And inside there's a couple of choices. The common one is custard, red bean, and the most interesting type of dillamanju that I had, I kind of forgot the name of it. Dillamanju, I'm sorry, is the smaller fish, but the bigger one, I totally forgot the Korean name, but the Japanese name is taiyaki, and they're like pancakes inside, with stuff inside of it. And one of the most interesting taiyakis that I had there was the pizza taiyaki. And I've never seen pizza taiyaki. I mean, the taiyakis that they sell here, is usually the common ones: custard, red bean, Nutella. And here in New York, they're roughly around $6-7. And I was happy to know that I only spent 2,000 won, which is roughly about $1.25 for those taiyakis. So cheap eats, is the way to go in Seoul. Food for the soul is eating at any of whether it's the night markets or the food markets, any time of the day. I think I survived on that pretty much. I mean, the only expensive part of my trip was really the airfare, but it's worth traveling, especially around the holidays. And I've mentioned this in my previous episodes, that the time around the holidays, the winter holidays, Christmas, New Year's, that's my favorite time to travel. And it's also my favorite time of the year here in New York City. Everyone's just more lighthearted. The city is festive. And yes, I believe Seoul, excuse me, my bangs are a little bit, I needed to roll my bangs. But the great thing about Seoul is, especially during the holidays, it's just everything is lit up, and I think everyone's just happy. But I have to say, Seoul is just Korea in general, they're just so happy. They care about their health and their wealth and their well-being, which is something, this is why I, if I could, I would totally move there. I would probably do one of those, teach English in Seoul, so that I could spend more time venturing out in the city and learning the culture and getting my skincare done, because I'm an avid fan of K-beauty. Not only that, I'm just now really immersed in the language and the culture, from K-pop to K-drama to K-fashion to K-beauty, all things Korea. Yes, I totally recommend that. If you're planning a trip anytime to Korea, let me know and hit me up after this podcast. But segueing from food, there's more to Seoul other than food. Before I segue to another topic, I have to mention chicken and beer. I don't drink, so I didn't have the beer part, but chicken places, there's probably more fried chicken places in Korea, and I don't mean just KFC. But the Korean fried chicken food chains, the one I had was BH I totally forgot it, but I'm gonna insert a picture here. Um, and yes, this is in the Myeongdong district, and there's a straight line of a bunch of fried chicken places in the district. And unfortunately, I only had fried chicken once because I was just more obsessed with the Korean street food. But the Korean fried chicken that I had was sunflower chicken. I guess it was just fried chicken fried in sunflower oil, and it was not only crispy, but it felt healthy. Sometimes when you eat fried chicken, especially if you eat Popeyes, KFC, even Chinese chicken wings, you taste the oil, and sometimes you don't feel healthy. You really have to go to the gym right after. But with this type of chicken, with the sunflower oil, it's just after the aftertaste, it just words are indescribable to describe that chicken. I will say that it was probably the best fried chicken I ever had in my life, and it was only a full whole chicken of that was 19,001, which runs about $15, which is and it came with like I think 12 or 16 pieces. Well, a whole chicken. Usually when you buy a whole chicken here, it's roughly about $26. I'm estimating it based on New York City prices. I'm sure anywhere else it's a bit cheaper, but New York, LA, San Francisco, those are pretty much like the estimated prices when you buy whole fried chicken, especially Korean fried chicken. And yeah, that's the food is really cheap, and also the Korean barbecue, which the most common thing in Korea, the barbecue that I've noticed is actually the pork belly. When I have Korean barbecue here, the most popular is the bulgogi or the kalbi, which is more the beef side. But in Korea, most of them actually like to eat pork, and it was delicious. I had it in the Insadong district, and I'm gonna give a shout out to one of my personal tour guides, So Young, So Young Jung. If you're listening, I hope 안녕하세요. I went on a full day tour with my sister and my mom to first one Gwangyang Palace. Okay, I might be mispronouncing that. I gotta practice my Korean, and I promise you that the next time I talk about Korea on the podcast, that my vernacular will be a lot better. But it started off there, seeing the changing of the guard, the palaces, the 5 palaces, which was actually run by the Joseon dynasty. It was very interesting to learn about the dynasty in that dynasty, and just the changing of the guard, seeing them play these instruments. And remember, I'm a music teacher by profession, by degree, I should say, and it was one of the most amazing things I've seen during the trip. And it was also the palaces were overlooking the mountains, which was so beautiful. I have a photo here, and isn't that beautiful? And there's just something about peace. There's just something peaceable about looking at mountains. But that was one of the tours that I did. The Bukchon, the Hanok villages, which is beautiful. And then nowadays there's just little shops there, and it overlooks the city, and you can actually see the Seoul Tower from there. And I have to mention the Seoul Tower. I'm gonna admit this was not in my itinerary of things. I thought Seoul Tower would be just like a common tower. I've been to so many towers, CN Tower, the Space Needle. I thought it was just gonna be like a Willis Tower, formerly Sears Tower. I was just expecting it to just be a tower that overlooks the city, but Seoul Tower is something that, especially for first time, if it's your first time visiting Korea, it's a must, because also if you watch these K-drama or the Korean movies, and I got excited on my trip back to New York. I actually watched a movie called The Swindlers. It was one of one of earlier movies before he dated, before Crash Landing on You. And that was one of the most, that's actually a really great movie to watch. It's a mix of Face Off and Ocean's 11. Totally recommend it. And Hanbin, again, I have such admiration for him as an actor, and he's a pretty good looking guy. But one of the scenes that they have in the movie is they're climbing Seoul Tower, and I got so excited, and it actually made me happy to see, and I really appreciated that I went there, and it was actually, as I mentioned, it wasn't part of my itinerary, but I'm glad that I did that tour. So thank you, So Young, for your expertise. And if you're ever in Korea, I recommend that you do a private tour um, with those sites. But yes, I greatly love Seoul Tower, one of the greatest. And when you go to Seoul Tower, you have to go before the sun sets or at the night. It's more beautiful at night. In general, Seoul is just a more livelier city at night than during the daytime. And speaking of other things that I did in Seoul, I was really obsessed with the metro. And I think I briefly spoke about in my previous podcast about the metro system. Now, nothing is as complicated as the New York City subway system. And there's truth in what Frank Sinatra says. If you could make it here, you really could make it everywhere, anywhere. And I was able to understand the Seoul metro system on the spot. Just there's 9 lines, and the only thing about Seoul is, unlike here in New York City, you can get to Brooklyn from where I am from, which is Queens, Woodside, Queens. I could get to Barclays and downtown Brooklyn within 45 minutes because there's our express trains. But if you go from one district to another in Seoul, it'll roughly take you about 45 minutes. Why? It's because there's no express lines. Everything is local routes. So there's 9 lines. Out of all the 9 lines, I probably rode 6 of them. And yes, when you go to Seoul, you could easily, everything is accessible to the metro or the bus. And if the one thing I didn't see when I was riding the metro is a lot of the locals ride the metros. I didn't see a lot of tourists. I feel like maybe a lot of tourists relied on Uber to get from one side to another. But it was nice to see that when you're riding on the train, the Seoul train, it's very quiet. So you have to be on your best behavior. You can't be loud, which was a challenge for me because I'm a very loud person. And yes, I'm a New Yorker. But that's one of the most challenges. But the most amazing thing is that you have to ride on the metro. And I like the fact that they give you a warning when the train is coming. It goes something like this. I didn't record it. I regret not getting it on video because my timing was always off. But it was amazing to see how the metro system works. It's not complicated, and I hear there's a lot of similarities to the Seoul metro system to Tokyo's metro system. And I haven't been to Tokyo yet, but that is on my bucket list of destinations I need to see probably before I turn 50. But yes, the Seoul metro system is something that you cannot ignore, and it's a must do when you get to Seoul. Now, I actually want to talk about Incheon because it's one of the most fascinating airports I've ever been to. It's so quiet. It's just like, it's so different from Ninoy Aquino Airport, where it's so loud and you see all these people with their balakbayan boxes. But the way Koreans travel, they travel light with like maybe 2 bags. I didn't travel with a balakbayan box. I never do that. I'm not the typical Filipino traveler. But I did have a lot of large luggage and a carry-on, and it was just like it seems so weird. I had like 4 bags. I'm just typically a bag lady, but you see how these when Koreans travel, they really travel light. But in the airport, actually, it's very quiet. It's a little bit different from, it's just if you're loud, it's just like you're gonna get too much attention. But I love how peaceful the airport is, and it's a beautiful airport. And it was, I believe, I was reading that it was one of the 5 best airports around the world, other than Changi, Qatar, Dubai, and I don't remember the other one, but I know Incheon was actually part of that. And there's, you know, when you have a layover, I suggest that you just roam around the airport. You could take pictures. There's installations there. There's duty free shops, but there's when I was there, they have an installation with Kasum. I forgot the Japanese sculpture. She's the one who does the polka dots. Her exhibit was here in New York at the New York Botanical Garden. I think it's called Kusama is the artist, but you'll see the installation there, and there's just a lot of places where you could take selfies. And being I've developed in becoming a selfie queen. It's part of the Filipino culture, I guess. But like I mentioned, Korea is such a happy place that I couldn't help but take selfies doing this finger heart. But that's one of the best things. You could kill time at the airport. And when you have a long layover, they do have some tours that you could tours around Incheon. I didn't have a chance to tour around Incheon. I know that they have one of the largest Chinatowns. I think the largest their Chinatown is in Incheon. But yeah, that's some things that you could do around the area. Other things that I did in Seoul was they also have a High Line where they have these different sculptures, and there's a lot of sculptures and just beautiful parks. And one of the most beautiful parks that I've been to was to see the I Seoul You installation, which they're going to take down this year, and they're changing the theme. The city is changing their theme for the year. They usually have a theme which they change every maybe 5 or 10 years. And another interesting neighborhood that I went to is also to see Olympic Park. And I'm a big sports fan. I've been freelancing sports for Eagle Broadcasting Corporation, a media a freelance media group based out in Quezon City, Philippines, and I've covered sports most of my freelance journalism career, and I couldn't miss Olympic Park, and they do have this exhibit that was by Lee Masick, who was the art director of the Seoul Olympics, and yeah, beautiful artistry. Olympic Park, I wanted to channel my inner Olympian at the park. And not only mentioning about sports, I wasn't able to go to Pyongyang, which is in another area in Korea. But one of these days I will go back there. And one of the things I want to learn is short track speed skating, which is a very popular sport in the country. But that is my rundown of my trip to Seoul. I totally recommend it. Remember, when you go to Korea, you have to fill out an application for KETA before 72 hours before departure. That was probably the lesson that I learned. I overlooked it, and I only was able to fill that application out maybe 3 hours before my departure time. So that's a very valuable lesson learned. Make sure when you go to Korea, read the requirements. You have to do that. That's a must that you have to do. And you always have to, they require masks, still require masks in indoor and outdoor. Everyone wears a mask. If you don't wear a mask, people will know that you're a tourist, and you'll be asked to wear a mask. Even if you put it down, they'll say, oh, you really need to put it up. Okay, so I'm glad to be back. It's been an amazing 2022 in the year of travel, and I am looking forward to being a kick butt travel advisor, also being a kick butt travel podcaster. Hopefully, I will have guests starting next week. I promise this will be probably, I won't promise you this will be my last solo podcast episode. There are times where I'll do some solo episodes, but I will have I will have guests for you where we discuss all things about travel. More on that next week. Smart People Travel Wise airs every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Pacific. I'm Tennie Sumague. See you again next time. Take care.